All right, here's something we can all agree on. It's human nature to quit when things get hard. There's this really important thing we need to understand whenever we're starting a new project, a new job, a new endeavor, a new side hustle, whatever it may be. We need to understand this concept of the dip. And this is inevitable, I feel like, for everybody. When you're starting something new, there's this excitement, there's this kind of thrill of it being new. But then after several weeks or months, or it could even be as long as a year for some people, you inevitably get to this point called the dip. Now, I'm pulling some ideas and concepts from a book by Seth Godin that has been impactful in my own life, in my own journey. So what happens in the dip is when our motivation goes from being really excited and it being brand new to our motivation starting to wane and our motivation like bottoming out. And that is inevitable for all of us because the newness and the shininess of doing something new and the maybe initial accolades that we get, it all wears off. Inevitably, it all just goes away and we reach a point where maybe people aren't paying attention as much anymore, or somebody's not buying what we're offering, whether that's a service or a product. You can get to this point where you question everything. You question, am I good at this? Am I truly good at this? Is there a future in this? Was I wasting time this entire time? Inevitably, this dip moment is where most people quit and give up and go and start something else. I experienced this in my own journey. So back in 2014, I started making videos, filmed my first wedding, got super excited. The first wedding that I filmed with a buddy of mine was actually a decent wedding film. And I was excited because all of a sudden I was making something that was of value to people. I could charge for it, and it was a hobby of mine that I loved. So it was really cool to see people value it, pay for it, and it's what I enjoyed doing. So I got really excited and thrilled. But then all of a sudden when I wasn't getting that many projects or when my videos didn't seem as good anymore, I reached that inevitable dip moment where my motivation bottomed out, where my confidence was bottoming out. And I really just, scratched my head and wondered, should I even continue? Should I even keep doing this? Should I just go get a typical job and kind of burn the ship, if you will? And remember that this dip moment is where most people quit. This dip moment happens because building something, doing something kind of from scratch is really difficult. And if it wasn't difficult, everybody would be turning their own side hustle into a full-time job. Everybody would, be doing exactly what they love to make money. And if it was easy to keep going and to have the confidence, everybody would do it. There's a really interesting example that I want to share with you that may explain this even further and help you visualize this. Imagine you're going to the supermarket and you're buying groceries. You get to the end of shopping and you're approaching the lines and you're looking for which line is going to be the fastest for me to get out of here. Most of us do this, we're scanning and looking. We pick a line, we think it's maybe going to be the fastest for us. As we're standing there, something gets held up, somebody's card's not working, something's not scanning. We've all been in those situations. And then we start looking around wondering, is there going to be another fast line? Can I get out of this line and go somewhere else and get out of here quicker? The people who quit in the dip are like the people who go to another line and it's not faster. And then when they get to that other line, they start looking around, where's the next quickest line? And they go to another line and it holds them up, and they go to another line. I don't know if you've ever had this experience. It's happened to me before where I've switched lines, just one time, but I've switched from this line that seemed like it was really slow to another line, and then you look back over at that line and the person who was behind you is actually now checking out and getting out faster than you. It's a really interesting visualization, if you will, thinking about people who quit in the dip. So when they feel like they're slowing down, when they feel like no progress is being made, they look around to see what's the next easiest, what's the next quickest thing that I could do. But in all honesty, it's kind of a mirage, if you will. It's kind of a fake sense. So they go and pick another line. But the problem is they've lost whatever progress they initially had. They get in that line, it starts going slow, inevitably because building something, working on something is a slow progression. So they get in that next line, it's not moving quick enough for them. They quit that line and they move on to another line. But because they're constantly making a little bit of progress, quitting, moving somewhere else, making a little bit of progress, quitting, and moving somewhere else, they're inevitably spending all of this time and wasting all this time. If they had just stayed in that line initially, waited it out, pushed through, they would have gotten to the very end and gotten out of there. It's the same thing with whatever we're working on, whatever project and endeavor that we believe in, that we want to see come to fruition. If we keep hopping and switching lines, if we keep quitting and trying something else, then all of that time that we're spending just getting started in all these different areas, all of a sudden we could have put that all in one thing and made a lot more progress. We could be way further ahead. We could be that person in that line and looking back and be like, oh my goodness, the person who was behind me, they're up there now. They're making more progress than me. That's what happens is when things get painful and things get difficult, we want to quit. But you have to really work on setting those emotions aside. You really have to work on, even when there's not motivation, even when you feel like you don't have confidence, that you need to remember two simple words, and that is keep going. Keep going. Because what happens is if you survive the dip, and the dip for people is different depending on what you're working on. You know, if you're trying to build out really intensive software, that dip could be 5 years. What you're working on, it could take several weeks, it could take several months. You could experience this low point where you're lacking motivation. You could experience that for a decent amount of time. And again, that's why people quit. It's because it's hard, it's painful. So you have to remind yourself of those words. Keep going, keep going. Stay where you are, stay where your feet are planted, and keep going. Back when I was experiencing this dip moment in my career, I had only made $20,000 in a year making videos. You know, $20,000 isn't an insignificant amount. It's not a little, you know, a lot of people would be proud to be able to make $20,000 with their side hustle. And I agree, but I wanted it to become my full-time gig. I wanted it to become my career. And I knew being married and starting a family that I wasn't gonna be able to make it, quite frankly, with only $20,000 a year in projects. So that's where I was at this low point. I wasn't getting that many projects and I wasn't making the money that I wanted to make. But had I given up, had I truly pursued another career, and granted, I did interview for a project management job somewhere else. I was on the cusp of doing something else. I was on the cusp of going in a different direction. But because I settled in, I remembered to just keep going, and I fought for it. And now, today has been 3 years since I left my agency job, started my own business, doing video production, filmmaking full time, and I went from making $50,000 a year at that agency to now profits of $146,000 profits, and revenue being over $200,000. So if I had quit in that dip, I would have given up on my dream. I would have given up on almost 3 times the amount of income. I would have given up on more freedom to have more time for my family, to actually get to be around while my kids are little. I would have given up on so many different wonderful, incredible things, incredible moments, had I given in to the dip and looked around and wanted to switch lines because I felt like there wasn't enough progress in the moment. If you're in that moment or you're approaching that dip moment and you don't have the motivation, you don't have the confidence, let it be known that anyone who's done something significant, exactly what they've dreamed of, has experienced exactly what you're experiencing. I've experienced it. We're all going to experience it in different ways, but we've all experienced that dip. And on the other side of the dip is exactly what you want. On the other side is growth. On the other side is realization of things that you've dreamed of. But you have to keep going. Even when it's tough. Even when you're not motivated. Even when you feel like it's a lost cause. Just keep going. Just just keep going.